So, I think this is the first time CZ is in an audience speaking live to everyone. And thank you for doing this in Bali. You just arrived this morning. And how was your first impression of Bali?
Oh, I've been to Bali many times, so.
But what did you think so far today, especially given the G20 and the activities? Was it harder to get in?
It was a bit harder to get in, but yeah, I think I've been to the same hotel before when I was on vacation. So yeah, it's a nice place to be.
Thank you. So there were a lot of prepared questions that I cannot ask, but now I can ask, right, to you many of these questions.
Sure.
Because I know it's top of mind for everyone, and the way I do this, the best way is just ask direct. Is that okay?
Sure, anything goes, yeah. I can imagine which questions will come up.
Yeah. So maybe I'll ask first, just crypto overall. What's going on in the industry today? Because in my mind, it feels like the 2008 great financial crisis.
I think that's probably an accurate analogy. I think we just seen another very big player going down. A few months ago, there was Luna, Three Arrows. Luna was big, Three Arrows was smaller, and then with Celsius, Voyager, they're even smaller. But then FTX is big. So with such a big player going down, I think we're seeing $30–40 billion of value that's in FTX valuation that was before that they raised that. Plus quite a few $1 billion of user funds that's kind of gone. So with this type of events happening, it's devastating for the industry. So a lot of consumer confidence is shaken, and I think basically we've been set back a few years. Now regulators rightfully will scrutinize this industry much harder, which is probably a good thing, to be honest. I think now, before the regulations are much more focused on KYC and AML, I've always been saying, look, you got to focus on the exchange operations. So business models, proof of reserves, where the user funds. So I think we'll come into a lot more scrutiny on those fronts. But actually, that's good for the industry. So having that setback, short term is very painful for a lot of retail investors. That's on FTX, etc. But we feel that pain. But longer term, I think this is another wake-up call to say, hey, look, we're in a new industry. There's a lot of risks, and we need to learn how to deal with those risks and how to build a much healthier industry.
So what happened with FTX, and I know you can't comment on the FTX side, but what actually happened the last 3 days? I mean, this is only 72, 96 hours, but I mean, if you can share with us what's on your mind and what's going on.
Yeah, so I think the last 3 days is just a revelation of problems. The problems were there way longer, right? So like this problem wasn't created in the last 3 days. So basically, we have an exchange, FTX is misappropriating user funds. They were taking user funds to do other things. And I think the trigger was like a week ago. There was a CoinDesk article. And then my team says, well, hey, CZ, we still have this, we still have a lot of FTT coins. Like, what? Should we sell it? Sure, why not? So the next day, there was a big transaction reported by Where Alerts saying that like $580 million worth of FTT was transferred to Binance.com. And my team's like, CZ, this is our transfer. I was like, well, really, you sure? He's like, yeah, he's sure. And should we be, there was discussions in the community. And should we be transparent about it? It's like, yeah, sure, we should be transparent about it. And then he said, CZ, you should write a tweet because we don't, what we'll call the interns, our PR team says, we don't really know how to write this particular one. This is quite sensitive. So I was actually just going out to meet two of my friends who actually also came to Indonesia now. I was on my way out to meet with them, and then so I just wrote a tweet in a few minutes. But I wanted to explain, like, how do we have this much, right? So we can't just have $580 million worth of FTT all of a sudden. We got it. We didn't buy it from secondary markets. We got it as a transaction of our exit, equity exit out of FTX a year and a half ago, which was publicly reported. So I said that, and then I didn't know my phone will blow up like over the rest of the evening. So, and I also didn't know, like, no, the second day I said, look, I didn't know that was, this is the, I think the word we used was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's before Sam, SBF called me 24 hours later. I thought it was just causing a lot of waves in the Twitter, in the community. 24 hours later, Sam calls me and says, hey, CZ, can we talk? Okay. And then he says, well, I thought he was going to do an OTC deal, right? I thought he was going to ask, hey, CZ, why don't we do an OTC deal? Then we can put all the negative comments out, then confidence is restored. I thought he wanted to do that. But instead, he just said, look, we have much bigger troubles. I said, look, we don't want users to be hurt, and we want to protect the users. So the deal, to be honest, I can't comment on any specifics on the deals, but from our perspective, the deal did not make sense from a number of fronts. From a financial perspective, is a big hole. From new users, FTX, we have very high overlap. We cover all the regions they cover, and they have much less users than us. From a technology or product perspective, I think we have a superior product. They don't have anything that we don't have. So our original intention was let's save the users. But then the news of misappropriating user funds, and especially US regulatory agencies' investigations, we're like, okay, we can't touch that anymore. So, and then we said, look, and then as soon as I understood we couldn't touch it anymore, I said, let's make that announcement as quickly as possible, because we don't want to do a slow no. If we're going to do a no, we do a quick no. That's one of my principles in business. So then this way we don't drag on for a long time, and then we also remove any uncertainty or doubt in the community, because as you can see, when the deal was going on, the deal was happening, crypto was dropping. Uncertainty is actually worse than negative news. So when the news is out, everybody knew, okay, this is where we are. So we said, look, let's announce it as quickly as possible. So we announced it. And then after we announced it, I've been trying to keep quiet to the extent possible. So I didn't appear on any TV interviews, et cetera. But this was arranged weeks ago. Yes. So I still want to honor that commitment. So I flew here. Now here we are.
No, but thank you for being so open, given the circumstances and the fact that this is a global news, and crypto enthusiasts is everywhere. And where do you see Indonesia here? And I want to take it a bit out of from the story, the recent event. And you already mentioned that this takes a 2-year step back. But yet the enthusiasm of crypto, especially for the young people here, is so high. What should you do as an actor, as a good actor in business? How should you go about this to bring back trust into the industry?
So as one of the largest players in the industry, we have to lead by example. So I think the number one thing we have to do is being much, much more transparent. So anything we can do to increase transparency, we need to do. So proof of reserves. Proof of reserves is going to take a couple of weeks, mainly due to the vendor being very busy. We're like, okay, let's do that, but before that, let's publish all of our cold wallet addresses. They were pretty public before anyway, so we published yesterday 6 top coins, which covers actually 80–90% of the user funds. So now people can see on one page which addresses are the cold wallets. Anything that we can do to improve transparency. And I think we also want to educate regulators all around the world. How do you do audits on crypto exchanges? Not just KYC, ML, which is important, but how do you check the cold wallets? How do you do user balance reconciliations? How do you check transaction logs? How do you use on-chain monitoring tools to do this? So all of these things we do internally. We do real-time reconciliations across multiple aspects so that we can try it. And if any balance goes off, we get alerted in real time. So should we make those kind of systems public? I think all of these things we need to do as an industry, which actually, on the long term, I think will make the industry much healthier. So all of these things needs to happen. Yeah.
And yet, this essentially the idea of crypto itself is where everybody becomes its own bank in that sense. Yet you mentioned that now regulators is going to step in, given that it plays such a big role in society. Just as a number, 12 and almost 13 million Indonesians have a crypto account one way or the other, from less than 1 million pre-COVID. So that makes up 5% of society today have some crypto exposure one way or the other. So regulators, good or bad, needed or not needed, and how should it play a role?
Yeah, I think there's two topics there. Number one is I think regulators are definitely needed. I don't think our society is advanced enough to live in a world without rules. So once we have rules, then that's what regulations are. Somebody have to make some rules. So, but doesn't mean all the rules are good. It doesn't mean all the rules are bad. So good rules are good, bad rules are bad. The rules need to be sensible. If the rule says, hey, we're just going to ban crypto altogether in Indonesia, that's one type of rule. I think that's obviously going to be bad. If it's anything goes, that's also not so good in general. There will be a lot of scammers, a lot of guys doing business in a bad way and cause a lot of damage. So we need to find the balance. So it's not an easy task. So that's on the regulation side. And then on the crypto side, with people holding their own assets, be their own bank, I think eventually the technology will get there. But today, it's not easy. Today, technically, you can. The technology is there, but it's just not easy to use. It's not easy for an average person to say, hey, I'm going to save my private keys, have multiple copies of backups. So if I lose my computer, if I lose my hardware wallet, I can restore it. And worst case is we all die. So if I'm no longer around, how does my kids inherit it? Most people, with the tools today, we can do it, but it's just not very easy. 99% of people don't know how to do it. 99% of people probably do not even know how to securely encrypt a USB backup, right? We need to make the tools easier. Once we have those tools, then more and more, as the tools become easier to use while being very secure, more and more people will shift to that. But today, if you look at the real situation today, the majority of people would be much more comfortable using an email, password, and call customer support if they forget it. And we also have many cases where a person passed away. Then next of kin comes with a death certificate. We validate it, wait for a month, just make sure that the guy doesn't come back alive. And then we give the funds to their kin. So today, the majority of people, for the majority of what we call regular, normal people, a centralized exchange is easier to use, even though they have to go through KYC, AML, which is actually quite cumbersome. So we need to transition the industry. The industry improves in incremental steps, not giant leaps forward. Yeah.
So then, the discussion. So the entire crypto discussion, I've been doing a lot of reading the last 2 years, and it's in fact very romantic notion of finance, right? And in terms of open finance, and now it's being questioned significantly the last 6 months. And now what you're saying also is essentially, yes, our society needs regulation. What stage you think regulators should play a role now? For example, you said, okay, no longer about KYC, Pandu, no longer about just know your customer and AML. What else should they be involved in your view?
Oh, I think obviously, just as things playing out, the next thing that all regulators are going to be very interested on is how account balances, right? So reserves. So I think that's absolutely going to be like where the focus is for the next little while, which is right. We learn from our mistakes. So a week ago, before that, they were looking at loans because all the loan companies had issues. But given the most recent revelations, I think people are going to be much more focused on user assets. So I think that's going to be the next, little period that's going to be the focus. Going forward, there's still many other things like wallet security. How do you secure how do you do security as a large exchange? How do you handle customer disputes? Yeah. Do you allow ICOs or not in your country? There's a lot of things to decide. But I think the next focus is definitely on user asset security. Yeah.
And I think that's probably top of mind for regulators today is to figure out, okay, what are my key priorities, especially for 2023, looking at crypto, because it is now accepted as an asset class. So in a way, what's your view, the role of Binance and yourself as a CEO looking at all this?
I think Binance, there's many parts of Binance. I think I'm much more involved on the Binance centralized exchange. So as an exchange platform, we are the platform to provide liquidity to other projects or users in the ecosystem. So we view ourselves as an infrastructure provider for other people to access crypto. So we should be very neutral. We should be very secure. We should be very compliant. And also we should also be easy to use. So we should protect our users as much as we can. So that's the role we play as a centralized exchange. We also invest heavily in decentralized DeFi projects, etc. There, we're much more of an investor supporter type of role. Binance Labs invested in about 150 projects so far, and the portfolio has done really well. So there we're like, we have a group of projects that we are usually a minority investor. So we don't drive them, we give them, some we just fund, and like some projects we just give them funding. There's no equity, there's no even tokens involved. We just fund them for them to do something stuff that's useful. I got this advice from a senior leader in the early days of Google. He said, look, Google provides a number of infrastructure services people don't even know about. The time that you have on your phone is most likely synced with a Google time server. Google provides that for free. When you look up a website, when you type in a website URL, the DNS lookup is most likely done by the Google 8.8.8.8 DNS server. It's free. So Google provides a number of infrastructure services here and there for free. People don't even know about it. His advice to me is like, you should just provide tools for people to use the ecosystem. So that's kind of our goal and our philosophy that we're trying to learn and copy.
So Google's philosophy is, in the IPO is do good, right? That's one of the philosophy of Google. Is there a philosophy you can share about Binance?
Yeah, we also have a two-word thing in Binance, which is protect users. Yeah.
So, I think, moving forward 2023, geopolitics, whatever is happening today in the world, in China, and now, obviously, recently in your industry, what do you see the trend in 2023 top of mind for you and for the crypto industry?
I'm not very good at predicting trends. If at the beginning of 2021, I would not have said NFTs or GameFi. At the beginning of 2020, I would not have said DeFi. At the beginning of 2017, I would not have said ICOs. But 6 months later, all of those things happened in each of those years.
That's right.
So looking forward is very hard to predict. So we just have to wait and see. We need to wait to see what's taking off and then try to help it. So for example, today, I don't know what metaverse really means. And I don't think anybody really knows. It's a hard word, but nobody knows what it really looks like. But if a platform actually takes, in the metaverse space, actually takes off, getting users, we should support it. Right, so we should we should help them any way we can. If they need investments, if they're launching tokens that needs liquidity, we should list it. So we need to identify. We're looking for trends. We're not predicting ones.
And in your view, in your industry, it seems as consolidation is the big play. Is that true, or is it something else going on?
I think today is definitely consolidation, especially given that FTX just went down. So they're like the 4th or 5th largest exchange in the world. So now they're gone. So now there's definitely consolidation. In a bear market, we see severe consolidations, and also with FTX going down, we'll see cascading effects, right? So I think BlockFi is now bankrupt again. And I think Voyager deal is going to be, I don't know what's going to happen there. FTX won the bid, but for $1.4 billion, but obviously they won't have the money to pay for that. So they will probably have a second hit. A few other projects going to be in similar situations. And I think it will take a couple of weeks for most of them to come out. So there will be, so right now there's definitely consolidation.
Yeah, and when you mentioned this, I have probably 3 quick questions and I think we're done. There's a big step back because of what happened with FTX. It may take 2 years. There's a lot of things actually relying on platforms such as yours. You mentioned about metaverse and everything else. Will you see innovation slow down this next couple of months? And is people simply just becoming risk-averse in the industry?
I think innovation is hard to measure that way. I think most of the builders are still building. In fact, some of the smaller exchanges might see this as an opportunity because now there's one less, bigger player up there. There may actually be more people wanting to start exchanges. And I think the builders who are building projects, I think Solana ecosystem is quite negatively affected. So I think many of those developers might want to migrate to other blockchains, et cetera, or looking at different options. And BNB chain is one option. There's many other blockchains in the ecosystem. And even just Solana, we would love to help them. The builders will continue to build, but it's especially for those close to the FTX ecosystem, they will be more negatively affected. But at the same there will also be less money coming in, or at least slower, short term coming in slower. But the technology is not going away, right? So it's like the internet is not going away, blockchain is not going away. We will recover from this, and there will be more. In a decentralized industry, when one player goes down, it causes a lot of pain, but other players will come in very quickly and feel it. And those new players that feel it will be stronger ones, right? So there'll be more competition. So the market takes care, the market will heal. The market will heal itself.
And in your view today, just short term, being pragmatic, do any of your stakeholders really understand what's going on in the crypto? And I mean stakeholders, regulators, auditors, policymakers, right? State leaders, do they really understand? I mean, if you saw 0 to 10, what level of knowledge do you think they know?
To be honest, I think if we say average across the world, they understand.
Among the big states, like the countries that matter, US, China, the G20 countries that
I think even if we take an average of the G20 countries, the understanding of crypto among the regulatory bodies are still relatively primitive. Many of them are trained to think in the traditional financial way.
Correct.
So I can tell you, to many banking regulators, fractional reserve is very normal, right? Banks every single bank that I know of runs on fractional reserves. So they may not even. This is why they don't look at this problem before this instant. So there are differences, and to be honest, senior members, they have a long career to get there. They're trained and molded by traditional finance that didn't exist. Well, crypto didn't exist during their careers until very recently. So many of them are learning this from reading online, etc. Many of them don't hold crypto yet.
Yes.
Right. So many of them have not downloaded a wallet, doesn't have a Binance account, haven't played with things. So many of them are still have a theoretical understanding of it. In my communications with them, I would say still the majority of people have a rudimentary understanding. But the people who really understand. So the regulators in Dubai, they really understand the technology. In France, they really understand it. When I go to those places, I don't have to explain what crypto is. They say, hey, how do we move forward? Yeah.
So I guess this is my last question for today. For some of you, we'll see in the B20. We're gonna talk again, but for all of us here in the audience, mainly Indonesians, what is your hope in a way for all of us? Because a lot of our young entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, some are actually seasoned, like Pak Frankie here, he's my senior mentor here, who's a seasoned entrepreneur. What are kind of the key lessons looking at this cycle, and what is kind of like some values you can instill to them, to the entrepreneurs here?
Sure, I think for entrepreneurs, in any industry, I view entrepreneurs as like almost like a 2-3 step process. The first step is really just finding product market fit, right? So you have an idea, you implement something, you see, hey, does this stick? Does it stick means there's a few different ways to measure churn rate or stickiness. If you bring one user, do they get a second user in for you? If you achieve that, then you have product market fit. Or if you achieve profitability, or if you achieve growth. So once you achieve that, then you find the right product. Before that, you're in the experimental stage. You should experiment with small amounts of VC money, etc. And then once you find product market fit, that's when you scale. So that's the second phase. Scaling at the scaling phase, then you can raise much more money. You can do more marketing, and you can potentially look at blockchain to issue a coin or a token, because then you have product market fit. the chance of failure is much lower now. Once you issue a token, changing your business model is not that easy because every time you change a business model, your token price goes up and down and users complain. So there's a scaling phase, and then there's a maturing phase, right? So at a certain size, regulators will come in and they'll be looking at governance, et cetera. So there's a maturing phase. So I think mainly those three phases from my perspective. And I would say blockchain, crypto is a very, very useful tool to accelerate the second phase, not the first phase. I don't recommend people to use crypto for the first phase.
Thank you, CZ. I want everyone, please give a round of applause to CZ
Thank you.
for being open. Thank you.